Hi, this is Sarah Parker, and I am recording the explanation and implement of Assignment 0 for CPSC5010 for spring of 2025. So our first project for Assignment 0, 0.1, is a gratuity calculator. And this program is going to ask the user for the total cost of a meal, and then based on how much the user would like to tip, we'll calculate the tip amount, and then add that and give the total cost. So for this particular program, we only needed to include IOStream, which will allow us to get input and output from the terminal. Our variables, we are using doubles because we are going to need decimal places. We have 4 variables declared. We have meal cost, tip percent, tip amount, and total cost. So the first thing that we're going to use is Cout, which will print this line to the terminal, asking the user to put their total cost of the meal in. Cin will then take the number that the user has entered and save it to our variable meal cost. The next step is to print a second line asking the user how much of a tip that they would like to leave, 10%, 15%, 20%, and then take that number and save it via Cin to our tip percent variable. We then use those 2 variables to calculate our tip amount and our total cost. Our tip amount is our meal cost times the tip percent divided by 100, and our total cost is the meal cost plus the tip amount that we just calculated in the above step. We then print 2 lines to the terminal, and it gives the total of the tip amount based off of the amount, and then it returns the total cost of the meal, which is the meal cost plus our tip amount. So to see this, we are going to run our program. And it might take just a second to build. Okay, it's asking for our meal cost, so we're just going to say it costs $100.62. How much do we want to leave a tip? 15%. So that lets us know that the total cost of our meal is $100.15 and $115.71. Okay, moving on to our next project. This was sum of integers. So this was the second part of the assignment, 0.2, sum of integers. This program is going to ask a user for an integer input from 0 to 1,000, and then it's going to take each of those numbers in the integer and add them together. So if the user entered 115, it would add 1 plus 1 plus 5, and then it would produce the sum. We only need to use our IOStream, so we're going to be getting input and output from our terminal. Our variables are the user input, and that will be determined by their input on the terminal. And then we are going to go ahead and set integer sum to 0. So the first thing is asking our user for an integer, and then using Cin to save that integer into the variable user input. We are going to use an if-else statement to make sure that our users have inputted the appropriate integer, making sure it's greater than 0 or less than 1,000. If it does not meet this criteria, it will move to our else condition, which will print out this statement, asking our user to please enter a valid integer from 0 to 1,000. If they have given us a valid input, it will jump to our while loop. So while it's greater than 0, we are going to access the sum variable, and we are going to add the user input modulo 10. And essentially what this does is it's going to take the rightmost digit of the integer that was entered and add it to the sum. The second part of that is then taking the user input number and dividing it by 10. So then we're extracting it. We're just taking that rightmost digit away, and any remaining digits will continue through the while loop. So take the rightmost digit, add it to the sum, and then remove the rightmost digit until we have 0. So then the final output to the terminal will be the sum of the integers and then whatever the sum is. We can see this run by running the program. And you can see I did it earlier with 115. So we'll do a different number. We'll say 945, which should give us 18. And that is correct. The sum of our integers is 18. Moving on to the third program, that is to calculate compound interest. So this is 0.3 compound interest calculator. We are, again, only using IOStream, and we're completing all of this in the main method. Our 3 variables that we have set is the monthly savings amount, the interest rate, and the account value. So this program will ask a user how much they want to save every month, and then it will add the interest to that monthly addition, and then carry it over to the next month and calculate it again, so that we can see how much they've saved over 6 months with interest. So the first step is to ask the user how much they'd like to save, and then saving that into our variable monthly savings amount. From there, we're going to go through a for loop, and we're basically looping through this 6 times to get our 6 months. So I should have stated earlier, our interest rate is 0.00417, and that is taking a 5% annual interest rate and dividing it by 12 months, because we're looping through each month individually. So we're assuming that our account value is starting from 0, that this is a brand new account. So we're saying that we are going to assign to account value to our 0 is going to be whatever the value is at the time. So for month 1, it would be 0 plus the savings amount times the interest rate. And then it will calculate that every month and then output the final value after 6 months. We can run this program. And I'm going to do the same that I did before. We're going to say that we're saving $100 a month, save, and that gives us a value of $608.82 at the end of those 6 months, because we've added $100 every month. That's our $600, and then we've accrued $8.82 in interest. The final program was to calculate the roots of a quadratic equation. This was assignment 0.4. So for this one, we needed to include a different header, which is C Math, because we want to access the built-in functions of the math class. So for our variables in this one, we have set doubles of A, B, C, discriminant, root 1 and root 2. We've declared these variables, we have not assigned them yet. So the first step is to ask our user for the coefficients of the quadratic equation that they would like to evaluate. So enter A, and then Cin saves it to variable A, enter B, Cin saves it to B, and so forth with C. The discriminant is calculated by the following equation. It is B squared, or B times B, minus 4 times A times C. If the discriminant is greater than 0, then we can calculate our roots from these two equations, which gives us a positive on this side and then a negative on this side, and then it prints out the roots. If our discriminant is 0, then we only get one root, and it'll calculate and print out that root. If it's a negative discriminant, then there are no real roots, and the program should print that out accordingly as well. So let's run this program. There we go. Sorry. Couldn't see it around my camera. Okay, so let's enter A as 5, B is -3, and C is 2. So the equation has no real roots, which tells us that our discriminant is equal to 0. Thank you.